today is World Menopause Awareness Day. It's celebrated every year to raise awareness about menopause and the support options available.
Yeah, the theme this year is premature ovarian insufficiency. And to discuss more on this, we're joined via Zoom from here in Johannesburg by Dr. TrudY Smith from the Menopause Society. Dr. Smith, thank you so much for joining us this morning. You know, when our team was discussing doing this interview today, I very quickly said, guys, I was merely sweating this morning because I wasn't sure if the aircon was high enough. We don't need to have an interview about it because I am in my early 40s, you know, and everybody had a good giggle about it. But I suppose that's part of the problem. Menopause is kind of something that we giggle about and not pay attention to in a more serious matter, because there's some serious medical issues that come along with this stage in women's lives, isn't there?
There certainly are, and I think perhaps, especially if you go through early menopause and you haven't completed your reproductive life, it can have devastating effects because, unfortunately, your ovaries fail and you're unable to have children. But yes, there are many other things that during the menopause affect us, such as depression, anxiety, you know, mood, sleep disorders, etc.
So, Dr. Smith, this is where the problem is. I think based on what you were just explaining, all of those issues you just highlighted is really everyday life that I think many, many women in the country and around the world are experiencing. How do you try and get on top of being able to look after yourself better from a physical and a psychological perspective? What do you do there?
Well, I think, you know, it's like everything in medicine. It starts with lifestyle changes. So certainly smoking, alcohol, obesity, which is a big problem for us, particularly in our country, have an effect on menopause. So it needs to start with lifestyle changes. So increasing exercise, because osteoporosis or brittle bones or your ability to fracture also increases with menopause. But I think the most important thing is to seek help and to ask a practitioner, ask the nurse practitioner to help you.
Now, the theme this year is premature ovarian insufficiency. I must admit it's the first time I've heard about that. Can you explain to us what that means? And is there truth to speculation that there are more and more women experiencing menopausal symptoms earlier on than might have been the case in the generations that have gone before us? And why could that be the case?
Well, International Menopause Society have really themed premature ovarian insufficiency. So the average age of menopause is round about 50. But if it occurs before the age of 40, sort of 45 to 40, then it's deemed premature ovarian failure. You know, females and, funnily enough, whales are the only species that undergo ovarian failure. The rest, their ovaries continue to work. And premature ovarian insufficiency is just really early menopause. There's many causes. Toxins, for instance, chemotherapy, etc., can put you into premature menopause. There's often a familial thing. So if your mom had premature menopause, you're much more likely to have premature menopause. Things such as radiation that can affect your ovaries. And then now the all-important autoimmune disorders or autoimmune diseases. That's when your own body basically develops antibodies to itself.
Doctor, I've just been taking a look at some of the stats and the research that's ongoing around menopause and some of the issues that can develop at a later stage. Hormone therapy still seems to be a hotly debated topic. To use HT or not to use HT. I'm sure there's a litany of literature and opinions on this, but where are we in this kind of research?
So certainly in premature ovarian insufficiency, you know, if your average age of menopause was 50, we do like to use hormone treatment in women up to the age of 50, because if you don't, it puts them particularly at risk of osteoporosis, brittle bones, you have skin issues, you get a dry vagina, you have decreased libido, decreased sexual function. So in that group of women, and particularly those who are very symptomatic, we would advocate the use of hormone treatment. Remember, we no longer call it hormone replacement therapy. You can't replace what is lost. It's a treatment. If you have problems, then you need to be treated. So it makes it slightly easier in the 40 to 50-year-old because you can certainly use, for instance, an oral contraceptive because that has hormones in it. And then you could, if you don't want to use oral contraceptives, you would use hormone treatment. So yes, the litany of literature is out there because of the anxiety around breast cancer. But there are many other issues, unfortunately, that affect women, particularly those with premature ovarian insufficiency.
Dr. Smith, I think, I wonder if this is a fair statement to make, that we live in a time where, when it comes to issues like menstruation, it's no longer seen as a taboo to speak about it out in the open. It's something that young women have to deal with at a certain age in their lives, and it's with you up until the stage in the life that we're speaking about right now. Do you feel like there's still too much mystery surrounded the age of menopause, almost the third stage of a woman's life, that's still seen as a taboo to speak about, both for women and for men to speak about? And how much of a problem is that when you actually have to look at how we can deal with this from a medical point of view?
I think it is definitely, we are not taking it seriously enough. You know, there's a lot of literature now. You spoke right at the beginning about it being really hot in the studio, etc. You know, often the transition to menopause, particularly in a working woman's life, is almost at the peak of their career. And often they may be sidelined because, you know, this is when mood changes, they become depressed, they get anxious, they might be, you know, lose that sense of autonomy. A lot of times it's also when your children are leaving home, you know, things are changing in the household. So we definitely need to have more discussion about it.
Doctor, it would be remiss, I think, of me to not ask the question. I know I'll get slated on social media if I don't ask this. To not downplay the importance of World Menopause Day. Is there such a thing as manopause? Can we put this to bed?
So the word menopause means your last menstrual period. So I hope there is a menopause. But it's actually called andropause. So androgens are male hormones. So whether it exists or not is a difficulty. But certainly there are a group of men whose testosterone declines with age, and that is termed andropause. And they would have also mood changes, erectile dysfunction, etc. So does it exist in the literature as a definitive? It's still in debate, but yes, there are a group of men. There are a group of men who go through andropause, but all women will go through menopause.
Thank you so much for clearing that up, because can we at least have something that is our own as women and it be called menopause without them trying to take it over? We're coming to the end of our conversation now, Dr. Smith, but just in passing, if somebody's watching right now, I must admit, it's the first time I've heard a conversation about menopause, even as a woman of my age, where you talk about depression and that kind of mental health issues being part of the process. If somebody's watching right now and they feel that, oh, they're just feeling a little bit down, or perhaps there are other medical issues that they feel is just, you know, it's just one of those things, what do they need to look out for them to take a look at what they're feeling physically or mentally, and have to perhaps say, but hang on, perhaps this has got to do with menopause or change of life, as we all grew up hearing it being called by all the aunties around us?
I think what's important to note is that there are other reasons for depression and anxiety, and you can't always blame your hormones for them. But certainly if your periods become irregular or really heavy, and your anxiety levels start to increase, and you become depressed, I definitely think you need to seek help. But particularly if you're bleeding a lot. You know, many women attribute it to menopause, but there are other reasons why your periods might be irregular and you might start bleeding really heavily. And that's particularly cervical cancer or uterine cancer. So don't blame everything on menopause. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. What an education that conversation was.
It really was.
That's Dr. TrudY Smith from the Menopause Society, really educating us on what today is World Menopause Awareness Day.